Good morning.
Good morning.
Can everybody see this? Can you see the presentation from back there? If you can't, feel free to move forward. I know Father Allen is sitting with all his friends there. No. Let's start with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Good and loving Father, the giver of all good gifts in our world, we thank you for this opportunity to gather here, to gather in your church, to gather with fellow parishioners. We ask that you really come into this place, send your Holy Spirit into this place to open up our minds and our hearts to everything that you are trying to convey, that you are conveying to us, that we may be receptive to everything you are conveying. We ask also for the intercession of St. Benedict, whose feast day we celebrate today. He was the founder of Western monasticism, and really a great role model for discipline and order in our life and in our faith. So we ask for your continued blessings, and that everything that we do be not only for our own sanctification, but be for the glory of your name through all of the world. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. So, a little bit about myself, if we haven't met. My name is Andre, a seminarian here in the diocese, assigned to the parish, of course, for the summer. I only have 3 weeks left, so it's like, what is happening? It is flying by, and it has been very good. It's been very good to meet a lot of you. Even if I don't remember your names, I will remember you. Maria, I remember you. Don't worry, that one's there. And Rob, don't worry, the names are in there. They're just lost sometimes. I wanted to present today on the life of St. Meinrad, because St. Meinrad is really the patron of my seminary in Indiana. So this is the Archabbey here, this front picture, which I'll explain more about. But the seminary is named St. Meinrad Seminary and School of Theology. So if you don't know who St. Meinrad is, don't worry. I'm going to talk about his life, kind of give the overview of his story and like the Benedictine monks that came from Einsiedeln, Switzerland and started the seminary in Indiana. And then talk a little bit about the seminary and like what do we do there. No, we don't just pray all the time. We do have fun and we do work and we do study. We don't only study. So I'll talk about that at the end. So a little bit of an overview. Figure this out. Yeah, so kind of overview what I'm going to talk about, and you'll see the Archabbey pop up a lot in images. I've included a lot of pictures. I love pictures, but it's also like a reason why we use so much art in Catholicism is because like even if you can't understand what I'm saying or something is lost, we look at pictures and pictures like lift our mind and our hearts to God. So like I'll have images of the stained glass windows in the church, different art around the seminary. But you'll notice very distinctly this unique kind of sandstone that comes from Meinrad, Indiana. So St. Meinrad, Indiana is also the name of the town. St. Meinrad is a saint, St. Meinrad is the name of the seminary, and St. Meinrad is the name of the town. So that might get a little complicated. But in St. Meinrad, Indiana, this unique sandstone, like everything at the seminary is built out of that. And they actually have like the rights to it, and they've closed off the rights. So like nobody's building anything out of that sandstone anymore. So this is kind of a treasure in itself to have that. Okay. So who are the Benedictine monks? I apologize for the text. When I transferred over the file, the text changed, so some things might be a little bit off. But as you know, everybody I hope in here has heard about St. Benedict, right? We just heard about him today at Mass. It's his feast day. Woo, we love St. Benedict. Everybody is like, I guarantee everybody at some time or another has had a St. Benedict medal, or has prayed to St. Benedict, or has met a Benedictine. They're awesome. So of course they were founded by St. Benedict way back in the 500s. And then St. Benedict wrote what's called the Rule of St. Benedict, which really helped lay down the foundation for how all of the monasteries would work. And he's the founder of Western monasticism because a lot of other rules that were created later were actually kind of copied and kind of tweaked from the Rule of St. Benedict. So the Benedictines still today follow that rule. I'd encourage you to read it too. It's actually not a very long read, and it's kind of like, oh wow, this actually gives us a lot of advice in our own faith lives. It's a very beautiful thing to read. It's very short. Also that phrase, ora et labora, St. Benedict never coined that, but Benedictines kind of picked that up along the way. So ora, meaning to pray, and labora, work. Prayer and work is very central to all Benedictines. And of course at St. Meinrad as well. All the Benedictines share that spirit of prayer and work, and in different ways though. So like the Benedictines at St. Meinrad they run the seminary. Some Benedictines might run retreat centers, some might teach in other ways. But that ora et labora really animates the life of every Benedictine. Of course, the Benedictine monks, we hear monk. Monk is kind of a general term, differentiated from friar. Like if you hear like monk and a friar, a monk is like a Benedictine. A friar is like a Franciscan or a Dominican. That's kind of different terminology that kind of came through the centuries. But a monk would be a Benedictine monk, Benedictine brother, Benedictine priest. At the kind of the head, you'd have the archabbot or the abbot, depending on if it's an archabbey or an abbey, which I can explain a bit. The abbot is like the head. He's like the head honcho. He's the guy in charge. He has a lot of the same powers as a bishop does. You guys see? If I'm standing, I'm going to stand back to make sure you can see. The abbot kind of acts as like a bishop in his community. So he has a lot of the same powers that a bishop has. And then you'll have priests and brothers. So you can have a Benedictine monk who's a priest, and you can also have one who's a brother. So they're all monks on the same level per se, but you do have Benedictine monks who are not priests. And then you also might have oblates, who are kind of lay people, kind of living in that Benedictine spirituality. Okay, so to try to clarify, the St. Meinrad Benedictine monks, the ones who run St. Meinrad Seminary, they're Benedictine monks belonging to St. Meinrad Archabbey. So Benedictine monks are all over the world. They're all over the place. I'm sure many of you have probably been to Benedictine abbeys before. Benedictines are everywhere, but they have like specific communities. So I don't know if anybody has been to the Benedictine Abbey of St. Anselm in Manchester, for example. That's a Benedictine community. They're the monks of really St. Anselm, Benedictine monks. The ones at St. Meinrad, they'll be called the Meinrad monks, but they're Benedictine monks. So they're living that spirit of St. Benedict, more particularly of St. Meinrad, who I'll talk more about in a minute. Really key to St. Meinrad monks is the spirit of hospitality, which will make a lot of sense. I'm going to talk about now the life of St. Meinrad. But before that, this is a mural here of St. Benedict. Of course, you see the ora et labora kind of written into his rule. He's usually depicted with a book that represents the rule. Here on the side are like some monks kind of studying under him, kind of like observing kind of his example. I wish you could see more. You can't see, it's cut off. But the raven, you'll see pop up the raven a lot. It also has to do with St. Meinrad, but it's also attributed to St. Benedict because there's this story that when he was at Monte Cassino, some of the monks didn't like him and tried to poison him. This happened 1,500 years ago, so this is like a lot of legend. Some monks tried to poison him, and the legend has it, raven swooped down and like knocked the cup from his hands, and then he's like, oh, the ravens saved me. You know, it's kind of like, so you'll always see him depicted with the raven, as well as you'll see St. Meinrad depicted with the raven, which I'll talk about in a minute. So yes, again, the St. Meinrad monks, which I already went into, these are the monks at St. Meinrad. They're Benedictines, so you see this very distinct Benedictine habit with the hood, the pointy hat. They look like wizards or something. They're in a funeral procession. They don't always have their hoods up, but if they're in procession or if they're like deep in prayer in the chapel, they have their hood and they're just totally hidden away. Here's a monk at profession. This is Father Matteo, who will be coming and visiting. So he'll actually be concelebrating at Mass next week, so you might see him. Various other monks in the Archabbey. So these are St. Meinrad Benedictine monks. Life of St. Meinrad. So St. Meinrad was born in the 800, I think around 800 AD, in what is now Germany. And he was a Benedictine monk who lived as a hermit. I'm like, okay, well, what the heck is a hermit? A hermit is essentially a Benedictine monk who kind of like lives on his own, like isolated from the world, to really just immerse in a life of prayer, in a life of solitude, but praying for the church. And sort of like, what happens though is they usually become sort of figures that people go to for counsel and advice. They're like, oh, go see the hermit out in the woods, go find him and he'll like teach you things, he'll pray for you. So he was a hermit and he was dedicated to that life of quiet prayer. But people were constantly seeking him out. If you know the story of St. Benedict, it's very similar. St. Benedict lived in the mountains, and he's like, leave me alone, and people are like, he's so holy, let's go see him! And he's like, no! And then he eventually kind of got roped in and started a community. So St. Meinrad kind of had that same spirit of like, I want to be a hermit, but people keep coming to me for prayer. And so it's like, well, I will welcome them in. I will practice hospitality. I will be that Christ figure to them. When people come looking for me, I will give them what they come looking for. However, in I think he was 60, around age 60, 2 robbers came to his hermitage because they were like, whoa, if all these people are coming to see him, they must be bringing him like gifts. They wouldn't just they wouldn't just go see him and he wouldn't like not demand payment. You know, who would do that? It's like, well, maybe someone that read the gospel today, right? So people would go and see him. The robbers believed they were bringing him gifts in exchange for the counsel. And so they're like, well, he's living in the woods alone, and there's nobody to kind of like do anything about it. Let's go rob him, you know? And they kind of went there with ill intent, and Meinrad kind of sensed this. He's like, these people are a little sketchy, but he still acted with that spirit of hospitality and welcomed them in to stay with him, because he would also like put people up the way he was on the road position. However, the 2 robbers murdered him, and then like found out like, oh my gosh, he doesn't really have anything, and then they kind of fled in fear. So, okay, I want to get, oh, it's cut off, okay, sorry this part's cut off, but it says that, yeah, they murdered him and then they kind of ran off in fear. So that's where the ravens come in, because legend has it that 2 ravens followed the robbers into the town and kind of made a big scene. And then the locals became like, well, why are Meinrad's ravens down here in the town? And they kind of discovered that he was murdered. The whole thing kind of came to light. So a lot of times you'll see ravens depicted with the image of St. Meinrad. I have a bigger image of this mural soon that you'll see, and you'll kind of see the ravens there. It's also become the symbol of Benedictine monks. So at the seminary, like our sports team that we sometimes compete in tournaments, we're called the Ravens. Or you'll see ravens all over the place on flags and stuff. But I'd like to talk more about that because so Bishop Labashi, our bishop here in New Hampshire, went to St. Meinrad Seminary. This is him.
Wow.
So
I'm going to tell them to put that up there.
So he was studying for the Diocese of Rockville, New York at the time. This was, I think he finished in 1978 or 74, I forget what year. So there, on the wall of the seminary, there's all the graduates. So we found him and we make sure to point it out to everybody. Actually, one of his confreres, classmates, is the spiritual director of the seminary still. So we hear about him a lot. But kind of in honor of him, when the cathedral, this is the cathedral in Manchester. Have any of you been to the cathedral in Manchester? Okay, beautiful. They just did a new stenciling renovation 2 years ago. I was assigned there for that year, actually. And in honor of Bishop Labashi having gone to St. Meinrad, they painted, so you can see like this is what it looks like now, this is what it looks like before, it was all bland. And on the little, on these kind of like archways that go up, the raven here is pictured on 2 of those. So sort of in our cathedral to honor Bishop Labashi, if you look really small, there's also little bees, there's different designs, but the raven is on 2 of them, really to honor Bishop Labashi. And it's because everybody asks, like, well, why are you studying in St. Meinrad, Indiana? Why are you going to Indiana for seminary? Well, Bishop Labashi went there and he loves it, and so he's like, go there, and we say, okay. It's so easy. It's so easy. So again, next time you go to cathedral, kind of look up and you'll see them. I forget which ones they're on. Oh my gosh, I'm getting sweaty. Jump ahead. Did I do that? Okay. Really keen to St. Meinrad though, after he was murdered and the whole thing kind of came to light. He became known as the martyr of hospitality. That's why the Benedictine spirituality in the St. Meinrad tradition is really big on hospitality. Like when people come to the seminary, like they're welcomed in, they have retreats there, they have a beautiful guest house. So if you're ever traveling and you're going through southern Indiana, definitely stop through and see it. There's this beautiful guest house, you can stop and stay. They're very, very hospitable as a community. Meinrad's Hermitage, so St. Meinrad's Hermitage in what's now in Switzerland, Einsiedeln, Switzerland, his hermitage became the site of the Abbey of Einsiedeln. So this is, his hermitage was here, I think it's up on a hill, you can't really tell by this image. It's beautiful, like the whole Switzerland mountains are in the background. But this is sitting where St. Meinrad's hermitage was today, was in the time. So I haven't been there. Sometimes guys will take trips there. It's possible I could go in the future. You can see the chapel or the Church of Our Lady of Einsiedeln. This picture doesn't even do it justice. It's absolutely incredible church. It's not heated though, and the guys always go there in the winter and they're like bringing lots of jackets because it's very cold in the winter there. So despite Meinrad is often depicted in images attached to St. Meinrad Seminary. So St. Meinrad Seminary, I'll talk about in a minute, was named after St. Meinrad, but St. Meinrad never came to the United States. He never stepped foot on American soil, obviously. He was in Switzerland, that's where he died. However, when they started St. Meinrad Seminary in Indiana, monks from Einsiedeln came to Indiana, started it, and named it after St. Meinrad. So this image here of St. Meinrad, it's depicted like, I'm going to talk about, you can see kind of the native local people here because the Benedictine monks came to minister to the local communities at that time. But he never came to America itself. So in the background here, kind of in honor of Einsiedeln, this is an image of Einsiedeln, the Archabbey, and kind of the Swiss mountains, and the boat representing him metaphorically coming to the United States, although he never came. It's cut off, I wish it wasn't cut off. And lastly, his feast day is celebrated on January 21st. So on January 21st at the seminary, it is an awesome time because we have lots of cake and music. The Benedictines, they just find, they celebrate St. Meinrad, they celebrate today, I'm sure they're massively partying today, and then they also celebrate the passing of St. Benedict's death. So they're always partying with it. It's great. So again, he's known as the martyr of hospitality. So a lot of images of St. Meinrad, you'll kind of see this spirit of hospitality. This is a statue at St. Meinrad, and he's kind of holding the bread and cup, kind of out like, hey, welcome. That's often how he's depicted. So I want to talk about the Archabbey Church and the monastery itself. So it was fine. This is St. Meinrad Seminary and School of Theology and Archabbey and Monastery in St. Meinrad, Indiana. So it's really the bottom of Indiana. It's like about an hour north of Kentucky. So we're like right at the bottom. There's nothing in St. Meinrad. I think that's why they put a seminary there, because they're like, you can't get into trouble. There's just corn everywhere and soy, and like there's not much to do. You have to kind of get out to find any people. So in 1854, the monks from Einsiedeln came to southern Indiana at the request of a local priest who was German. There's a huge German population in that area. I'm not German, I'm French Canadian, and so I can't pronounce any of the names out there, but everybody out there is German. It's crazy. Is anybody here German? Okay, German. Because like everybody out there is German. Like here, everybody's French Canadian, so that's getting used to. However, since there were so many German-speaking Catholics, they needed help. So the Meinrad monks came to help them. They also came to establish a seminary because they needed help training priests. So like, okay, we'll create a seminary. The Archabbey, so again, the Archabbey, I'll explain a little bit of the kind of makeup here. This is kind of more of an aerial shot in the wintertime. There's the guest house, then there's like the Archabbey. This is the seminary kind of extending this way. The monastery is on the other side of the Archabbey. This is what the monastery looks like. And it was kind of designed Actually, let me back up a little bit. The monks used to live like kind of within the seminary quarters. It was all together. And then, I want to say maybe 25, 30 years ago, they built the monastery. And it's actually shaped like triangular to kind of represent the Trinity. And it was also kind of designed in accord to like the local structures. So it kind of looks like a barn. It was designed to kind of look like a silo. So it kind of looks like the surrounding farmland, because there's tons of farmland around St. Meinrad. And then, of course, here's the Archabbey, the front of the Archabbey, which I'll say more about in a minute. So St. Meinrad Archabbey is one of 11 archabbeys in the world. The difference between an archabbey and an abbey is essentially that an archabbey kind of has more of a see, it's kind of like a bigger parish, as to say. And the archabbey kind of has a lot of the same powers as a bishop, except they can't ordain. I think that's the only distinction, right? And so an archabbey is kind of like an abbey that's kind of like heightened. It's like bigger. It's almost like a larger community. There's not much more than that to distinct. But there's only 11 archabbeys in the world. So St. Meinrad is one of them, and there's only one other one in the United States. It's in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, the Archabbey of St. Vincent, I believe. So it's a pretty big deal that it's an archabbey, because there's only 11 in the whole world. A little bit about what the monks do. So the horarium is really, it means the hours. So this is like what the monks are doing their thing at the monastery, and then us seminarians are kind of doing our thing at the seminary. We don't live together. The monks run the seminary. The monks teach us. They're the rector, the head of the seminary is a Benedictine monk. But we live separate from each other. Like the monks are much more strict with their prayer life. They get up a lot earlier, probably. They probably go to bed a lot earlier too. But they kind of do their thing, and then we do our thing over at the seminary. So this is what their daily life looks like. If you can read, they pray together in the Archabbey 5 times a day. They have a life that's really focused on study, and they teach at the seminary. A lot of them are professors, so they're teaching our classes and kind of grading our papers for monks. And they are really, a lot of them are immersed in kind of different work around the seminary, kind of that spirit of ora et labora. So some of them work in parishes, some of them work in colleges. I think one of them is at the seminary in Rome. Some of them are authors of books. They kind of go all over the place. The Benedictine monks are really expand out all over the place. So that's their kind of horarium through the day. Then the Archabbey Church. The Archabbey Church of Einsiedeln. So its construction began in around 1900, I believe, or 1899, completed in 1907, and then kind of renovated in the late 90s. It's kind of gone through various renovations. So honestly, the outside of the church is much more grand appearance, I think. The inside has been a little bit whitewashed. It's kind of very simple, except for the beautiful stained glass windows, which I'll talk about. The white kind of interior makes the windows just absolutely pop. It's beautiful. I'll show some pictures of it. On the front facade here, Our Lady at Einsiedeln is pictured in the middle. I wish I had a better picture, but she's usually pictured seated, holding the Christ child. And on the left is a statue of Saint Benedict, and then on the right, who do you think is on the right? I think I wrote it on there. Oh, Saint Scholastica. I wrote it on there. Okay. Saint Scholastica, who was the twin sister of Saint Benedict. Who are you familiar with the story of Saint Scholastica? So Saint Benedict came to visit Saint Scholastica's community, and they were visiting, and she's like, "Don't go home, brother. There's like we've only spent a little bit of time together. Like, don't go home. It'll be another year till I see you." And so she prayed that God would send like a huge storm or something to stop Saint Benedict from going home, and it absolutely downpoured. And then he had to stay and visit with his sister. Oh man, what a pity, So she was like, I pulled God's will, and there we go. It's raining. You can't go home. So she's usually pictured as kind of the twin, kind of the parallel to Saint Benedict. So, by the way, my brother and my friend wrote a beautiful song. They wrote, and the It's on YouTube. They recorded it, put it out, called Visit with Scholastica. Visit with Scholastica. You should look up the song. It's a beautiful story. That's that story. It's also very well talented, played out. So a little about the interior. This is the inside of the Archabbey Church. You can see very traditionally the choir stalls that are usually in Benedictine Archabbeys or abbeys or monasteries. The stalls are on, they face, so like, you know, the stalls are on that side and that side. And they pray, when they pray the Liturgy of the Hours, which is the prayer that priests and religious pray every day, they go back and forth. So like one side will pray the first stanza, then the next side the next stanza. So that's why the stalls are designed facing each other. So you can see they're right here. They're on the side of the Archabbey looking down. Very distinct also, you're like, where the heck's the tabernacle? It's kind of a unique design because since they use the church itself for so much prayer, they kind of create a separation of space. Like here's the tabernacle. This is the tabernacle. It's kind of strange looking. It's kind of built from pieces of the old high altar. But this kind of chapel is behind the organ. I wish John Farina was here. He's not here. It's like this organ is beautiful. It's tremendous. So the tabernacle is kind of behind that. Then you have the Archabbey's chair, the organ, then the choir stalls that face each other. And then there's quite the separation to the altar. This is a lot of space. Between the chair and the altar is probably a good like 60 feet because this area is sort of reserved for prayer, and then the monks all come and they kind of gather around the altar because there's so many priests in the community that they're like fill the sanctuary, this part of the church when they say Mass. And the altar is designed different, I wish I had better pictures, kind of different scenes from the life of Christ. I won't go too much about that because you can't see it. There's again, the organ, the Archabbey's chair. Only the Archabbey sits in that chair. Sometimes seminarians will walk by and they're like, is anybody looking? Like, don't sit in that chair. You don't want to be the Archabbey. The Christus mural that's in the back is, I don't know who painted it, but this means like, I am the life. The wreath is representative of the crown of glory. And so that Christ really kind of stands like towering over the whole church. You can kind of see from the previous picture when you walk in, you see this like giant mural. It's like, Jesus is alive, you know. The stained glass windows, I think, sorry, the text got messed up. I kind of messed up a little bit. The stained glass windows in that church are my favorite part because you can see, because the monks are in there praying like all the time, so at night the church will all be lit up and you can really, really see very vividly the stained glass windows from the outside and then from the inside looking out in the daytime. The top scenes are scenes from, except for this one, the top panels are usually scenes from the life of a Benedictine saint. Any Benedictine saint. So there's like tons of windows. I don't know what they all are. This is much more in depth than I have to go into for this presentation. And then the bottom scenes are one of the Beatitudes, sort of put in an image. So like, I'll read what that says. I don't know what that says. Let's see. Apologize for getting messed up there. Oh yeah, I don't have which one that says. But there's kind of like a huge window, and then stacked on the bottom is like a bottom one of the Beatitudes. I gave a reflection a couple weeks ago, and I talked about the tree of life, and it kind of goes up into the cross of Christ. This is this scene. So like below this scene is like the scene from the Garden of Eden, and like the tree of life is there. You see Adam and Eve. These pictures don't even do it justice. I could give a whole presentation on the windows. I can't go with that into depth. I will keep you here all day. All right, monks, real life monks. People see monks walking around and they're like, oh, it's so medieval. They wear their little habit. It's like, no, we have legit like 70 monks living at this monastery, and they walk around with their little hoods on and their cinctures and everything. And it does feel really cool. Because you're like, wow, I feel like I'm in this medieval castle. And there's like, it's just, I don't know, I can't even explain the feeling. But again, not all monks are actually at St. Meinrad. There's 70 that are based out of St. Meinrad, but maybe about 40 or 50 kind of live there at a time, because they serve in parishes. Again, they serve at different colleges. One of them serves the local Carmelite sisters. So they're all over the place. Some of them are in Rome. I think some of them are at Ave Maria in Florida. They kind of like are all over the place. However, very distinct. He's our rector. So Saint. Oh my gosh. Not yet. He's still at. Father Dennis Robinson is our rector. Phenomenal rector. He just went into he's going to his I think his 15th year as rector. Father Tobias Colgan is the vice rector. So you kind of have like this whole hierarchy. There's like the Archabbey, then there's the prior, then there's like over at the seminary there's the rector. The rector's the boss. He's the one you don't want to make mad. You know, he's the guy in charge. And he looks so kind and happy. He is good. He's very kind. He's very happy. He's like our dad. Like, what's up, Dad? You know, takes care of us all in the seminary. Definitely takes care of us. I want to talk a little bit about what's called the chapter room. Okay, it didn't get too much cut off. The chapter room is really the official meeting place of all the Benedictine monks at St. Meinrad. Like if they're electing a new prior, or maybe they're meeting about something important to the community, they meet in what's called the chapter room. And that's not very exciting. It's like, yay, it's a big meeting room. However, the art in that room is like beautiful. This is one of the ceiling panels. Like, it's a huge room. It's probably the size of this room, actually. Much higher ceilings. And down the middle of the room, there's like, these are huge. These are like probably made to like the pole there on the ceiling. Different scenes from the book of Daniel, or the Canticle of Daniel. So the priests would pray this every morning. Every Sunday. Do you have it memorized, Father? I'm not gonna have you recite it. But there's different scenes from the Canticle, and then alongside the edges, there's different scenes from like the life of Saint Benedict, or different scenes from the rule of Saint Benedict. For example, this is one of hospitality. Like when a pilgrim comes to the door, you can see they're kind of like welcoming him with this spirit of hospitality. And then at the entrance, there's these two ginormous wooden monks with over them has like the words say the yoke of the holy rule. So like the monks are kind of bearing the yoke of the rule of Saint Benedict on their shoulders, really in that, like, we follow the rule, we're under the rule, as to say. This doesn't do it justice. You people need to come visit. Come find me and visit. I can show you all of this in person. It's phenomenal. Also, very wondrous thing to have is the Monte Cassino shrine. So Saint Benedict lived at the Monte Cassino Abbey. I think he wrote the rule when he was there. This is not where he was. This is the Monte Cassino shrine that is off the seminary owns like 2,000 acres of land. They have a ton of land. It's all farm territory. This is buried on one of the pieces of property. It was named after, of course, St. Benedict's monastery in Italy, and it's been dedicated to the Blessed Virgin Mary. And what's really key and why it became a kind of a central pilgrim site is because back in 1871 there was this big smallpox epidemic, and so the Meinrad community said, we're going to make a pilgrimage to Our Lady's shrine every day. And the smallpox epidemic didn't hit anybody in the town after that happened, which is a very miraculous thing because it was killing people all over the place, and nobody at St. Meinrad in the whole city or in the community died from that epidemic. So people still continue to make pilgrimages there. They have Mass there every day. They renovated it a few years ago and they put an AC system in there, which is amazing because it's at the top of this huge hill. And so it's a very good place to go and visit. Also, other things kind of attributed to St. Meinrad here. So kind of here's an overall aerial view, if this makes more sense. This is the Archabbey Church right here. This whole area is the seminary. This is sort of a guest house for people who come on retreat. This is the monastery. You can kind of see that after the Trinity, triangular fashion. Here's the guest house over here. Anybody can come and stay there. A lot of people come on guided retreats or weekend retreats. Here's kind of our swimming hole down here. There's a lot of fishing ponds and walking trails and Marian shrines. So that's kind of a good overall picture of the seminary property. But other happenings, for example, they have, the Young Adult Initiative, they just started, so they're kind of working with different young adult groups. Obach, this One Bread, One Cup, it's a program for high schoolers to come in and like learn liturgy. It's actually, some people from New Hampshire have ventured out there and do this. So if you know any, like, if grandchildren or children that are like, oh, they love the liturgy or they want to learn more about ministries, it's like a summer program you can go to. I think it's a week or two to learn more about liturgies, and the monks run it all. There's the guest houses I mentioned. There's guided retreats. They also do, the seminary does diaconate formations, so our deacon classes that have been formed will actually come to Meinrad to learn homiletics. They have a graduate theology program, so it's not just us seminarians studying to be priests. There's also like all these other kind of graduate students studying theology there. Yeah, continued priestly formation. They have a gift shop. They also build caskets. That's one of the big things they do. They build caskets, abbey caskets. So they're really killing it in that business. It's pretty good actually. Oh my gosh, bad joke. I want to talk about the seminary now. It's okay. Don't say that. Talk a little bit about the seminary. So the seminary was originally started as not just for college, but it was also a high school. I think that closed in the 70s, so the kind of the high school time was phased out. Now it's just a college for a seminary level. It's a college level now. There's no more high school attached to it. It's of course run by the Benedictines themselves. Again, our rector, our vice rector, professors there, our spiritual directors, formation advisors, those are all, a lot of them are all monks. So it's really cool to kind of like be able to see them every day. Like every day at Mass, we have like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 monks like celebrating the Mass. It's awesome. We have an abundance of religious priests there. Sending dioceses that send to St. Meinrad. Of course, Manchester, our diocese, the Diocese of Burlington, Vermont, we're the only East Coast ones. Like everywhere else on the East Coast, like Pennsylvania, for example, or even Ohio, New York, none of them sent to St. Meinrad. So I'm like hanging out with all these like Westerners and Southerners, and then the kind of Midwesterners. I'm like, there's not many Yankees there. And they stick it to you. You know, there's like kind of this war between the South and the North and the South. And then Kentucky and Tennessee, they don't know where they're from. Really, you from the South? Well, they don't know. They don't know. Like that's one thing I'm pretty sure about. They don't know if they're the North or the South. But we have like 20 different dioceses that send them, including some from Vietnam, Korea, the Bahamas. So you really get to meet guys from all over the place. There's about 120 seminarians studying there from these 20 different dioceses. New Hampshire will have 7 this year. I think 7. But there's 120 of us. It is awesome living in a house of formation with 120 other guys studying to be priests. It is like such a gift. It is. We're all doing the same thing. We're all living this life, like striving for the same goal. It's incredible. You have to come visit. I can't even get into how beautiful it is. However, we're across 7 different formation years. So it's like, okay, we don't go by like freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. The formation years are what's called the propedeutic year, which is new. Those are guys who are just entered seminary. They're not yet taking any academics, so it's really focused on like prayer and kind of human formation and spirituality. And then the next 2 years are philosophy studies to really get like the grounding, the foundation in philosophy studies. And then the next 4 years are theology. So like it's all theology in those next 4 years. I'm going into the last year, so they haven't kicked me out. It's going great. Couple images from our seminary. This is kind of the front entrance of the seminary. This beautiful tree kind of blocks the view. It's 5 floors. My room is on the 4th floor. This is our chapel. We have our own chapel in the seminary itself. Beautiful chapel. I'll have some more images here. Our rector loves art, and he put paintings on every blank wall in the seminary. So like we have these beautiful, huge images that he added. You'll see some more images of our chapel in a moment. Seminary life. So again, guys are studying there I'm not studying to be a Benedictine. I'm studying at a Benedictine seminary, but I'm studying to be a diocesan priest, like Father Allen. However, there are guys that are studying to be Benedictine priests and Benedictine monks, who are Benedictine monks. There's also there's a Franciscan studying there. There's different of the Glen Mary missionaries. Have you heard of the Glen Mary missionaries? They're not as much in the Northeast. They're essentially guys that come from overseas, and they help kind of re-establish parishes in very, very remote areas. So they're studying there. We also have some Carmelites. I hope you've heard of the Carmelites, cloistered. If you've heard of Mystic Monk Coffee, have you ever heard of Mystic Monk Coffee? It's just like a Catholic coffee company. That's their monastery in Wyoming. They're Carmel, as they call it. So 4 of them are in my class. In my class, there's Glen Mary, there's Benedictines, there's Carmelites. It's like you get this wide range of different religious and priests, which is really awesome. But we always wear this. Us seminarians wear this. The Carmelites will wear their Carmelite habits. Benedictines will wear the Benedictine habit. Franciscans wear the Franciscan habit. All these different colors going on there. But seminary formation is really grounded in what's called like the 4 pillars of formation. So there's the human formation, right? Because to do anything well as a priest or as a person, you really need to hone in your human skills. You need to know how to take care of yourself, get exercise, how to have social skills, how to relate to people. Everything we do is kind of built on that foundation of, okay, you know how to be human, right? So I'm sure like you have all indulged in plenty of human formation, right? That's something we're all doing. But you can't have a guy who's studying to be a priest who doesn't know how to get out of bed in the morning, for example. Like, get up, get your day going, do your homework. That's kind of the very basic. But then also other things like public speaking and, kind of getting out of your comfort space, living kind of this spirit of detachment. Those all kind of follow that pillar, the human formation pillar. Then there's the spiritual pillar, which is things like praying the Liturgy of the Hours, keeping a daily holy hour, praying the Rosary, going to Mass every day. So you're constantly being formed in that spiritual life. You have spiritual direction every other week. Then, of course, we have the academic or the intellectual pillar. We study a lot of different things, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then there's the pastoral pillar. Like, how are you as a pastor? How are you going out? How are you giving yourself? That includes like different ministries that we work in, teaching, working with the homebound. I'll say more about that in a minute. But a little bit about our daily life. The daily life, every day is a little different. But typically we have morning prayer at 8 o'clock in the morning. Some mornings there's holy hour before that. And there's also breakfast options before that. Then we have classes for a couple hours or so in the morning time. We have Mass at 11:30, followed by lunch. The afternoon looks very different for every seminarian. You might have an elective, like an elective of your choice that you're taking. You might have spiritual direction or meetings. Maybe you have some sort of ministry. Maybe you have some free time, and maybe you should be studying. We do study. Don't worry. Seminarians do study. I'm not going to lie to you. So, they study on their own accord. It's great. They do a lot of spiritual reading. Every day is a little bit different though. So like Monday nights where we don't have prayer in community, we have prayer like with the guys from our diocese. Tuesday nights we have like more of a family style dinner together. Wednesdays we have no classes on Wednesdays. That's a strictly ministry day. Which I'm going to say more about ministry in a minute. Saturdays are very open. You're kind of allowed to do anything you want on a Saturday because guys go to different parishes. Saturday's a very open day. Sundays is like very, you're in the chapel like all day on a Sunday. Just getting you ready for like kind of the flow of Mass and stuff in the future. We're in the chapel like 5 or 6 different times on Sunday together. Of course we have a big lunch on Sunday together as well. We'll say more about that. So it really varies day by day. But again, yeah, here's some comments that I already said a little bit about. Spiritual formation, kind of attached to spiritual formation, we have retreats that kind of begin every year. So when I go back in August, I'll actually be at this place. This is the Dominican retreat house in Atkinson, Tennessee, not far from Nashville. Where we go for a week in silence, and you have spiritual direction, and there's like tons of prayer. It's to really kind of welcome the year in with a period of silence. And like, you know what you're doing, right? You're going to be a priest, right? Pay attention, right? beautiful retreat house. You know, they send us away from the seminary because they know they have to put us somewhere else because we'll just escape. We can't escape there. There's no cell service there. There's nothing there. It's like you and God. It's great. We also have various liturgical assignments in the seminary. So we altar serve Mass. We serve as the lectors. The deacons will preach. Guys will serve as sacristan or cantors. We sing the Liturgy of the Hours every day. So we don't pray back and forth. We actually sing it back and forth, which is actually a beautiful thing to see 120 men in a chapel singing every day. In the morning it sounds kind of bad, but in the evening it sounds like really well, you know. And then we have like this guy, Joel, Arkansas guy, we have guys that cantor every day. So the cantor says one stanza and then the whole room says the other stanza and you go back and forth. So we sing every day. And then the acolytes, I'm an acolyte, you become an acolyte in your third theology year. The acolytes will actually lead morning prayer, evening prayer. So like the priest isn't doing it, the acolytes are leading the liturgies of the hours, which is very cool. So like, what do you study? A lot of people ask me what we study. Well, here's like a snippet of what we study, which you probably can't read. I'll name off some of them. Okay, ancient philosophy, modern philosophy, Christology, Mariology, liturgical theology. We study all of the sacraments like as individual classes. So I just took sacrament of marriage. I'll have sacrament of Eucharist and sacrament of reconciliation in the fall. We have a lot of biblical studies. So like Johannine literature and thought, the Pentateuch and the historical books, canon law. You don't want to do too good at canon law. You want to get a B. Otherwise, they send you to Rome, and then you become a canon lawyer. So I got a B. I got a B. So we also do what's called practicum. So practicum is actually practicing different liturgies. So I just went through practicing baptisms, anything that a deacon would be doing. So you practice baptisms, practice weddings. It's kind of funny because you have to like pick people to be like the bride and the groom, and like we have these little baby dolls we fake baptize, you know, and it's kind of funny. Like you present in front of the class, and the whole class watches you and gives you feedback, and the professor gives you feedback. It's a very interesting thing. In the fall, we'll be practicing reconciliation. So if somebody comes in, you like mock confessions. When you're the priest and they come in and they say what they say, and you have to like, I haven't seen it yet. They're very mean, but they bring in guests that like go on and on and on, don't stop, and you have to figure out what to do. Or maybe they speak in a different language, and there's different. You have to like, what do you do? And your peers are all watching you and they're taking notes. So like, oh, he's so bad at this. So I'm kind of nervous for that one. Homiletics is huge. We take 3 semesters of homiletics, so a lot of practice homilies. There's different methods you use, different public speaking skills. They really have a very good homiletics program. That's why the deacons, the permanent deacons that train our diocese will go and do the diaconate formation in Meinrad because their homiletics program is very, very good. So I've given a lot of fake homilies. Tons of other stuff. You have to do 2 semesters of Latin. Some guys study Greek. Some guys study more ancient languages. Yeah, plenty of studies, I'll say that. We also have conferences every Wednesday where it's maybe a more particular one topic. Maybe it's like how to do your taxes or something stupid like that. How do you do taxes in the parish, or I don't know. Those happen through Wednesdays. Of course, we have plenty of papers to write, plenty of exams. We also do pilgrimage, and Meinrad is a big pilgrimage seminary. Not all seminaries do this. So 2 years ago, my class went to San Antonio, Texas, to really kind of immerse in, because of the nature of the church, there's a lot of Hispanic population coming into our country. We don't see it as much in New Hampshire, but you go to the southern states and they're really seeing it. So a lot of the guys are studying Spanish, and really an idea of learning how to minister to those people is kind of like, well, let's go to where they're from. So we go to San Antonio, went to the border. We learned about the different centers that are helping people like that are immigrating, immigrants that are coming into the country. We went to Guatemala, to Santiago on Lake Antitlan in Guatemala. To really, this is where Blessed Stanley Rother was martyred. Are you familiar with Blessed Stanley Rother? Okay, he's from Oklahoma, so you're not going to be quizzed on this. But you'll have to look him up. I don't want to go too depth in that for sake of time. But we kind of immerse in the Guatemala culture to learn about it, so when those people come here, we can better minister to them. I went to England last December. I was supposed to go to the Holy Land, but because of everything going on, they're like, well, we're going to redirect you, go to England. So we learned about the English martyrs, we learned about the whole Reformation and the Church of England and everything. And then this fall, since there's still stuff going on in the Holy Land, I will be in Rome, actually, in December. My whole class will be in Rome. Of course, if you're a seminarian, this is kind of like the cap of your studies. You go to Rome. Vatican. I think we're going to Assisi one day. So pilgrimage is very big because it's not just, there's so much of the universal church that the universal church has to teach us, so we go to those places. We're very blessed to be able to go to those places. I'm almost done. I wanted to show this picture because there was 25 of us and we got into this tiny little boat and we went across this enormous lake. I thought we were all going to die. That's in Guatemala. They drive around in those little trucks. That's how they travel. So there's like 15 seminarians packed in the back of the truck. That's how they travel. It's very cool. This is the chapel where Blessed Stanley Rother was killed. Pictures of Rome and the Holy Land. You can see the Temple Mount back here. So unfortunately, I will not get to go to the Holy Land because of the war. That's okay. I'll go in the future, maybe. Okay, I mentioned pastoral work, our apostolic work that we go out and we do. This is kind of various aspects. So in some years you teach. So this past year I taught catechism, I taught 6th graders. I also worked with the parish youth group, and I worked a little bit with the RCIA people that were coming into the church. Some class years do homebound ministry, so they go out and they visit people that are homebound, or they visit the hospitals, they work in the hospitals. That's really like our apostolic assignment. So you get assigned to a parish somewhere. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seminarians get assigned to a parish. You basically work in that parish 1 week in a month, and also every Wednesday. Maybe more than that. And then there's also different jobs at the seminary. We have what's called the unstable. It used to be the old stables, and then they turned it into a pub. So now it's unstable, you know. It's a pizza pub. This is a picture of it here. You can get pizza, you can get beer, you can get chicken wings, whatever. It's open to the community. So lots of people from like the area community come in there. It's all seminarian staff. So you learn kind of how to work in that environment, work in the kitchen, learn how to cook. We also have, I don't have a picture here, but Jack's, we have like a coffee shop in the seminary. Same thing, seminary staff. The seminarians staff it. You can get espresso. Everything's really cheap there, which is good because we don't really have much money. You get like a beer for like $2, like a coffee for like $1.50. You know, it's like really cheap. So we drink a lot of caffeine. We don't drink very much beer. At least in moderation we do. So we also have the library that serves the public community. Seminarians work there. Project Warren, which I'll say more about in a minute. Scola, so guys can work, really be part of not just cantoring, but Scola, so they sing into different liturgies. Mater Center is like a support center if guys need help, especially for the international guys. They need like a little bit of tutoring. And then the dining room coordinator, I'll say more about in a minute. The Benedictines are really, in that spirit of hospitality, as we know, really big in that is dining, food, bagels, you know, it's like we feed each other. It's a good way to express hospitality, so we feed a lot of people all the time. So we always have to set up the dining room, like all the time. It's a huge dining room. I'll say more about it in a minute. So Project Warm, I just have to boast about this. I have to talk about this a little bit. I was a student manager this past year, and I've worked 3 years on it. Project Warm is it's a charity program led by us seminarians, where we go out into the community and we cut and we collect. We cut down trees, we collect the logs, bring them back to our lot. We split almost everything by hand, we stack everything, and then we deliver it to people in need of fuel assistance in the community. It's an awesome charity. Sometimes we go to people's house and we help them cut their firewood there. A team about a dozen of us, but we'll host Saturday nights, sometimes bonfires when like other seminarians and people from the community can come help chop wood for 3 or 4 hours, and then we end with a bonfire. and food, and but it's seminarian run. One of the Benedictine monks is kind of in charge of it, but then every year there's a director. I was the director this past year. It is an excellent way to get away from study and to just like sweat it out, you know, just like go to work, burn some calories because you ate too much pizza at the unstable. You know, that's how I push it, like join us. But it's a charity. So last year, this is our truck here. It does have a dump bed, so we don't need to unload everything. But we delivered 94 of those truckloads, 94 truckloads of firewood to the community. There's a lot of firewood. So you can see like the top picture there. We'll deliver more than that in a year. Luckily, it doesn't get as cold, and people have, a lot of the poor people have smaller houses, smaller stoves. But it's an awesome example of like the pastoral work that we do. We do use the chainsaws. Nobody's died yet. It's pretty good. So again, as I said, like hospitality is really big. Here's a picture of the Unstable, our pub. We had like a chili cook-off or a pizza cook-off or something. So all the seminarians will gather there. Our dining room, we're in the dining room so much together. And as you know, that sense of like family dinner is important, right? To have dinner with your family together at the end of the day to share, like, how was your day? And to really kind of take in that. We eat, you know, we have the Eucharistic sacrifice. That's a meal. There's an importance behind it, dining. Also, we always have tons of guests that are there that we're feeding all the time. We have to set the dining room. Like, when you have to set, this is a bigger banquet, but when you have to set this, you're like, oh, I'm on dining room duty. It takes like an hour to set the whole dining room. Like, it's a lot of work. We have what's called Around the World. Here's a priest drinking some Kentucky bourbon. The Kentuckians love their bourbon. Around the World is a big, like, I don't know what to call it. It's like a festival when all the different representing dioceses will kind of sponsor a table, and you make foods particular to your region, and we invite guests to come in, and they can like go around, like Korean food or Chinese food or Indian food or like Kentucky Fried Chicken or whatever. It's just kind of a big, good thing to welcome people in the community. And we don't just pray all the time. We don't just study all the time. We do have fun. The seminary is a place full of a lot of life. We go out and we compete against other seminaries in like soccer tournaments, basketball tournaments. We're pretty good at basketball. We're homebrew at soccer. We lost everything. Different tournaments. That's kind of cool to go out and compete against other seminaries. And people are like, oh, seminaries are so nice and sweet. You should see them competing against each other. They're like almost fighting. They're like, they want to kill each other. And then it's like, oh, peace be with you. Oh, yeah. So we have a lot of sports competition. We have like kickball, softball, dodgeball. You know, if you're stressed out, just whoop a dodgeball at your fellow brother seminarian, and it'll be all great. As I mentioned, like the chili cook-off. Here's one of the Carmelite monks, and another guy won that this past year. There's a 5K that happens. You're like, why is he in a Tigger suit? I came up with this brilliant idea with Inez Columbus. Hey, how about he runs a 5K, and if we raise enough money, he'll run it in a Tigger suit, or a Batman suit, or a banana suit, or whatever. So like, this is like a fleece suit. It's a fundraiser that our Knights Council does at the seminary. There's definitely kind of this life of, you know, if we're brothers together, studying together, praying together, playing together, which is definitely a great to have with a house full of many of the brothers around. We also play a lot of music. We have bonfires together, fire pits. We cook a lot together. It's a very fun place. We're like a huge family. And don't worry, you're not early leaving because that's it. This is the end. So, I don't know. Any questions? Any questions you have? And I went about an hour because we started at 9:05. So. But if you have any questions about how seminary formation works or anything like that, throw it at me.
Well, Andre, what about the Benedictines themselves? Are they completely independent, or is there a congregation of the abbots from all of the Benedictines? Do they ever get together?
I think they do. They do. I'm not really involved with that because that's like what they do on their own time.
Yeah.
But they do. They have different conferences, and like others will come together. and when they have certain meetings, like everybody in the community has to come back for certain meetings, like elections. So like the abbey at St. Anselm in Manchester just elected a new abbot. That's a case where everybody belonging to the community has to come back to that community. But a Benedictine community is not just living in accord with the rule. You're also taking like a promise of stability. So like this is your community. So if I became a Benedictine for St. Anselm's, for example, that's your community until you die. So like, I don't have a picture of it. So they even get buried, there's cemeteries even there. But as for coming together with other ones, it probably does happen, but I wouldn't be
But
looking at
not
the details.
formally. You're really independent.
As a community, I don't know how much, there's so many abbeys. Like there's only 11 archabbeys, but there's probably thousands of abbeys throughout the world.
We're glad you're a diocesan. We hope we see you again.
Yeah,
Andre.
I will be back in New Hampshire. So praise Jesus. Any other questions? Oh, sorry.
Now, are there different branches of Benedictines? Like, are you in the same branch as St. Vincent's?
St. Vincent's and Latrobe.
Yes.
So it depends where they. Yes, they're all Benedictines. They're all living in that spirit of Benedictine spirituality. They're all living with the rule, but they kind of stem out. It's almost like tree branches. They kind of stem out in various ways.
Yeah.
So Latrobe didn't come from Einsiedeln. I'm pretty
It did
sure.
not.
Meinrad came from Einsiedeln. Then there's Blue Cloud Abbey, that's in Michigan, I think. They came from Meinrad. So they kind of stem out from each other. St. Anselm's didn't come from Einsiedeln, I don't believe. Belmont Abbey, they might have come from somewhere else. So, but they all go back to Monte Cassino in Italy, like Benedictine community.
No, there's a small, an abbey in Richardson, North Dakota. Is that a branch off of Meinrad?
I don't think so. There's so many. If you can map it out, it'd be interesting to look up like where they came from, because there's so many in the country.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to say. Like I know Blue Cloud came from Meinrad, and I know Meinrad came from Einsiedeln, but I don't know where Einsiedeln came from. That one came from. The Benedictines kind of just go out, and if a community grows so large and there's a need, sometimes like they'll break off intentionally and form another one somewhere in order to break out and spread. So.
Do you ever find, or is it very frequent, that somebody goes to seminary there and finds themselves with a Benedictine vocation and then ends up moving into a different direction?
Yes, that does happen,
Yeah.
and sometimes the opposite. Because if you're studying, it hasn't happened to, well, I can't really say that. I know seminarians that have done that, yeah.
Yeah.
There's seminarians that have been diocesan guys, and then like, whoa, I really like the Benedictine spirituality, or maybe I really like the Franciscan spirituality, that will leave and will go join a religious order. That definitely happens.
And the opposite you just said too. Somebody
Yeah, so some guys might come as a Glen Mary missionary. So Father Dennis, our rector, he's a Benedictine, he was a diocesan priest for Memphis, Tennessee. And then he joined the abbey. And Father Mateo, who's actually going to be visiting here because he's my dean at the seminary, he's coming to like check up on me, make sure I'm not causing too much trouble. You'll see him at Daily Mass on the 24th, he'll be here. He was a parish priest in Kentucky. And he's like, whoa, I like the abbey, and he joined the abbey. So that definitely happens. Seminarians, more so, it seems to be that less are Benedictine and then become diocesan, because there's not a lot of Benedictines. I think there's 6 or 7 Benedictines who are studying, and then there's probably 95 diocesan guys. So there's more diocesan guys by far. Any other questions? Feel free to, if you have any questions going in the future, feel free to ask me about it. I would encourage you to you can look up St. Meinrad and then kind of look up the history. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of resources online about it. And then if you're ever traveling, feel free to come visit.
What was that song again on YouTube?
So it's called Saints, the Visit, it's called Visit with Scholastica. Yeah, so my brother's band did that. And I need to say, like, we're having a bar dance. If you all saw on the bulletin. That's what my family does, we bar dance. But they're coming to play. So maybe they'll play that song for us. But my family's coming to play music, and I'm going to call some dances. So if you like that, you should come. And if you don't like dancing, you should just come watch. I'm going to be dancing.
Andre, we want to thank you very, very, very much for sharing all of this with us. Thank you. We're so glad you're diocesan.
Yes, I'm not leaving.
Good, because we need you desperately, and I think you're going to do a fantastic job.
I hope so.
Yes.